Hello everybody and welcome to Slay the Spire, playing as the Watcher. I just could not stay away. My favorite color is purple, and this is a whole lot of purple. Now, because this class is the newest, I realize this game's several years old, but I've seen people who stopped playing, in the early days or whatever. And this class is largely avoided because it's you got to think about it a lot more and consider a lot more and plan ahead a little bit more. So the central feature of the class is the stances. There's three different ones. We're just going to talk about the two we start off with because we start off with them. Calm doesn't do anything in and of itself, but when you leave Calm, you get 2 energy. I forget about that all the time because it doesn't actually show up as a buff on your character, just white whooshes like you see in the picture here. But since you have to pay 2 energy on this particular card to get into Calm, it's like we get refunded later, which is nice. And then Wrath is kind of like the classic Berserker stance where you both deal and receive double damage, double attack damage. So, in theory, just with the starter deck, you'll probably enter Calm, and then you will enter Eruption, or enter Wrath, which takes you out of Calm, which refunds you the 2 energy for casting Eruption, and then you push as much damage into enemies as possible, hopefully killing them. Double damage goes a long way. And that brings us to the starter relic. Pure Water puts a Miracle in your hand. Miracle is a 0-cost skill that gives you 1 energy and then exhausts, and it also has the keyword Retain, which is not exclusive to this class, but you'll see this class dabbles heavily in it. Retain just means you don't discard it at the end of your turn. So the bottom line is once per combat we'll have 1 energy that we can have for free whenever we want. For this reason, a lot of people will tell you this is a perfectly reasonable option on the Watcher compared to the other characters. They say, why have just 1 energy when you could have 1 every single turn? But the problem is that's not the only boss relics, so you're not even guaranteed to get one that'll give you energy every turn. More importantly, I like to hold on to this because there's a common attack card called Crush Joints, which is 1 energy, deal 8 damage, but it has the caveat that if the last card you played is a skill, it also inflicts vulnerable. Now, we're going to be playing a lot of attacks, a bit of an attack-heavy deck, so getting the last card to be a skill, especially when you're trying to go for the throat, not so easy, but the Miracle is a skill, so you can just play the Miracle, put the vulnerable on. And the reason why the vulnerable is important is because it stacks multiplicatively with Wrath. So vulnerable normally says do 50% more damage, 50% of double is single, added to that double is triple. So we can actually achieve triple damage on our cards if we manage to find a Crush Joints. And like I said, it is a common, so it's pretty common to find. Now, because of the opening strategy, this is the only class that prefers to get rid of defends ahead of strikes, because when you're in Wrath, you want to be able to push some damage. So I really like the Transform a card option here because somebody recently brought it to my attention that transforming a card is like taking out one of your weak cards and putting in a stronger one. And yeah, it's random, so sometimes you might not get what you hope for, but hopefully it's better than a attack or defend, and we certainly did score there. This is an AoE spell that says end your turn. And this makes it somewhat awkward. Obviously it's very powerful. It's 12 AoE for 1 energy. The problem here is that most of what you want to do with Watcher, you want to get into Wrath and do your damage that way. But if you're ending your turn when you cast the spell, you can't take yourself out of Wrath. Or if you take yourself out of Wrath so that the survivors can't hurt you real bad, then you're not going to get double damage on this. But still, 12 AoE for 1, quite good. So we are satisfied with that. Especially since Slime Boss, so AoE is good. Let's see here. I have gone ahead and made this higher value for Rest over Elites just because there are a lot of cards for Watcher that benefit from being upgraded. Eruption, for example, becomes 1. At 2 cost, Eruption is okay, especially since we have a Miracle, but it kind of requires you to be in Calm first just so you could get the energy back. Whereas at 1 cost, you could Erupt and then Strike, Strike. That's a burst for like 33 or 45 if you use your Miracle to do another strike, or even more if we're talking about Conclude. So, and I don't always go by what the weighted paths say. It's just sometimes path looks so similar to me, I might see what it has to say. Mostly we're looking for elites, obviously, and campfires. Now, I would say this class is better equipped at burning down Lagavulin and Gremlin Knob than even the defect is, but probably struggles with sentries more than the defect does. So I see we can do a second elite there or here, but if we come here we have the potential of doing 3 elites, and that looks like the most. Now if we stay to this side of the map, store is not an option here if we want to get all the elites. Of course, coming this way is store plus fire rather than an elite. That might be okay. And of course we have up until here to decide. The thing is, if we're not going to be going to this store, then I would like to hit this store. Okay, so now that I have an idea of what I would like to do, now is a good time to check out the numbers. And it's saying they're all equal, and I don't think that's accurate. Let's see, if we came this way, we would have campfire, store, campfire, 2. Alright. So 1 campfire, if we try to get 3, or if we come this way, instead of here, we get a late store and 2 campfires elite. Here we have 2 campfires elite, late store, but we get an early store. Whereas if we come to here, we have an early store as well, but slightly later. So let's do this way, I think. It is 1 less fire. I think I prefer fire, to be honest with you. So this is a super early store, which is unfortunate, but we do have a later one here. The problem with going to stores when you can't buy relics is that the relics that are displayed are gone forever for this run. So I think an extra fire, right? Because if I come through here, there's 1, and then the end, whereas this is 2 and 2. Yep, this is the route I prefer. Let me know what you guys would have decided. I know I did a lot of up and down there. Okay, so we have conclude. So as far as blocking, defend, defend, conclude. Obviously we don't want to go deeper into these guys because we're going to pop both of their curl up, which means they actually have more life otherwise, but then the block falls right back off. So I'll just do a full block and then a conclude. And it's kind of nice not having to hit the end turn button. You can see I've used a mod to move my energy closer to the center of my field of vision. Here we don't need to do this, but I'll just go to show. Strike does 12. If we manage to find crushed joints and get vulnerable on the target, that strike would be doing 18 damage. Okay, well, I guess the game wants me to explain to you mantra. And the third stance, divinity, which is actually like both of the other stances combined, plus 50%, but it only lasts for a turn. So it probably will tell us if I highlight this. Yeah, divinity. The way you get divinity is you gotta build up mantra, and as you saw, the starter deck has no mantra gaining, which is why I didn't talk about it at the top. Mantra will show up as a buff with a number, so if we play this card, the buff would have the number 2. Once you pass 10 mantra, the buff is taken away by 10, so say we had 9 and we played this, we'd still have 1 mantra, but we'd be in divinity, at which point we gain 3 energy, and we deal triple damage with no downside. Um, so it's better than Calm because we get 3 energy going into it instead of 2 coming out of it, and it's better than Wrath because it's triple damage, not double, and we take no retaliation. The trade-off is that you only have Divinity for that one turn. So it's an interesting thing because you start off with no mantra, so cards like this are worthless at first, but you get 2 or 3 sources of mantra and suddenly you'll be popping in and out of Divinity every now and then. Here's not so bad because 0 cost for 4 block. Like, we would choose a deflect sometimes in Silent, which I think is 0 for 4 block, and this is, you know, 1/5 of the way. Now, obviously, at this point, we're not cycling through our deck 5 times, and by the time we get to a fight that long, the deck will be more bloated, so we probably still won't be going through 5 times. So this is not going to get us to Divinity by itself. Like I said, you usually need 2 or 3 sources. I think the first time I got into Divinity, I actually got a starter relic, or a relic very early on that basically said +1 every turn. And then I got Prey, I think it's called, which was like, it was Prey Plus, so I think it was like a chunk of 4. So I got into Divinity a couple times that run. So not a bad choice here. Consecrate is 0 cost, deal 5. Obviously the idea is if you're in Wrath, it's 10. So even as a single target, 10 for 0 energy is quite nice. And right now we only have 3, sometimes 4. So that can come at a premium because when you enter Wrath, you want to be casting as many cards as you can. Damage cards, and of course the fact that it's AoE. Now we already have AoE, that doesn't mean we can't take more, but I think Crescendo is the pick here because that's kind of what holds us back in any given fight, is we kind of have to defend until it's time to Wrath and unload, and if we have more than just the one way to enter Wrath, all the better. Plus this card has Retain, so even if we don't cast it right away, it just sticks in our hand and we can go into Wrath at will, and once upgraded it's actually costing 0. Now alternatively, what we could be thinking about, and probably should upon reflection, is the fact that most of what we're trying to do right now is to be ready for the elites. As I mentioned at the top, our starter deck is actually fairly strong against Lagavulin and Gremlin Knob, but we were a little weak versus Sentries. So this is not only another attack. Imagine we chose either of these against Gremlin Knob, we're just punished. This fits in nicely, and this helps with Sentries. So I think I will take this card now. But we do want to be on the lookout for more ways to enter and or exit our stances as we pull forward. And part of the reason I publish these runs is to solicit feedback. So if you know of a better way or hear me making mistakes, by all means, give me the feedback because I do appreciate it. No need to be greedy here. We'll just go with the Plenty Fine max HP. Okay, Tantrum is one such card. Deal 3 damage 3 times, enter Wrath, shuffle this card into your draw pile. So not only does it give you another way of entering Wrath, but you get a bit of recurrence there. Mental Fortress is also very good once we get going, and we're going to be bouncing in and out of stances fairly regularly. It's 4 vanilla and then upgraded at 6. So that's nice. If we do take this, we can see the card removal service is flashing red. We would not be able to take that. And I think that's okay. This is an attack. It's increasing our damage output, which means if we enter Wrath by any source, we have more damage. So yeah, this would be 18 for 1 energy if we're already in Wrath. You know, I wish I had recorded my last run. I had an early store where I was able to buy Vault, which was basically Time Walk. And holy cow, do you have a lot more freedom when you can enter Wrath, pass your turn, get a fresh hand, fresh set of energy. Okay, so this is just bonkers here. We could enter Wrath by either of these. So we'd be doing, well actually I guess this one is better because it costs less. 3 energy. We'd want to, yeah. I don't think we're going to be able to kill this thing this turn. But if we had 5 energy as an example, this would do 9, this would then do 18, so that's 27. And this would do 24, so that's 40, 51. We do have enough, don't we? Yeah, I was looking at both of these as 9. Oh, but they're both 18. Okay. Alright, so 9 and 18 is 27. And this would be double, so 24, that's 51. We have lethal. It doesn't really matter which one of these we cast first, I don't think. There we go, we are in Wrath, so that's now 18. And this is 24. That would not have been lethal, just the strike, so... Yeah, this is one of the reasons why we're choosing attack cards, even though we're already a bit of a cannon. Okay, so these are all good. Rushdown is a power whenever you enter Wrath, draw 2 cards. I've mentioned a couple times already that one of the things that are a little bit awkward about your starter deck is once you enter Wrath, you want to be able to have cards to play. If you have Eruption and nothing but blocks, you're kind of out of luck, but with a Rushdown in play, you're drawing more cards, so that's kind of nice. I already talked about Crescendo. There are 3 cards called Empty. There's Empty Fist, which does damage and exit your stance, Empty Body, which is a block, exit your stance, and then I think Empty Mind, which is draw 2 cards, exit your stance. That's really good because, obviously, if they survive our being in Wrath, we don't want to be counterattacked. And if we're already in Calm, spending 1 energy to exit Calm gives us 2 energy, so that's a net gain. Now, with the inclusion of Tantrum, we now have technically more than 2, because this goes right back into our draw pile, ways of entering Wrath, and only 1 way of exiting. So I think Empty Body is the play here. I would much rather this was one of the other empties. But they're all skills anyway, so with regards to Gremlin Knob, we're punished on all of them. But we absolutely, having 2 ways into Wrath and only 1 way out, we absolutely have to take another way to get out of Wrath, in my opinion. Okay, this is really good. We can Erupt, which kills them outright. Unlike the vulnerable I mentioned from Crushed Joints, which we haven't found one yet, which is very sad to me. Wrath is a buff on you, not... And unfortunately it doesn't show up as a buff. I really wish it did, because there's lots of times I'm in Calm and I totally forget that if I exit it I'll gain the energy. If it showed up as a buff, I don't think I'd be so quick to forget. But anyway, since he's not attacking us, we can just unload. We can look ahead to see how likely we are to have lethal next turn. I don't think it matters. I definitely want to just do this here. Okay, there we go. So if we were, fighting more developed enemies, we could totally Tantrum Strike and then Empty Body, which would give us block and take us out of Wrath when it goes to their turn, but this is just way overkill otherwise. Wheel Kick, just lucky. So Scry is another thing that this class does. Scry is basically look at the number, in this case 1, cards on the top of your deck, and you can choose to discard any of them. Scry 1, not so good. Obviously this is 0 cost, so it's not like we're paying energy for it, but it's not quite a draw, Scry. It's not quite a draw card, but it does help you get through your deck and be more selective with your deck. I had, last run, I had a power called Foresight, which just basically says at the start of your turn, Scry 3. So you can like perfect your draw every single time. It's pretty nice. Wheel Kick obviously has a really big number on it. I always have reservations about such expensive cards drawing cards, because without the miracle, the good chances we're not going to be able to play it. Most things. You know, on 3 energy, you spend 2, you draw 2. Unless one of them's a 0, you're only going to be able to cast 1. And of course, we're talking about your whole energy for the turn, so that means this is drawn with 4 other cards. So, nevertheless, because of Wrath, I think big numbered single target is fine here. if we're in Wrath from the turn before, like say waking up Lagavulin, or after, you know, Gremlin Knob's first turn, we are going to have the opportunity to do some nuking. And I definitely think Eruption is always going to be the first upgrade, because, like I mentioned, the casting cost difference is night and day. Alright, moving on. So I was hoping, fighting all these hallway fights, that we would be able to find... Okay, this is really cool. We start off with the way to enter Wrath as well as a way to exit it. So, we will... Unfortunately, we're getting attacked by both, but we don't have any defense in hand at the time. So we'll do that for some AoE. We can wheel kick for 30 damage. That just kills him outright. And it's okay, because now we empty body, we gain 7 block, we exit Wrath, and he's only going to do 8. So yeah, we're only going to take... That was a huge turn. And there's the tantrum right back again. Don't mind if I do. Alright, so we're a little fierce, I would say. Another Consecrate? Probably not. Fear no evil. Deal 8 damage if the enemy intends to attack. Enter Calm. Alright. That would complete our stance package for the moment. We'd have 2 ways of entering Wrath, 2 ways of entering Calm, and a way to exit either. And this is particularly stands out to me because it's a 1 energy way of entering Calm. Now it's conditional. We've seen lots of times where Go for the Eyes, for example. They're just not attacking, so you're not going to get that. At which point it's just a 1 energy, deal 8, which is fine. I don't think we would need such a thing at this point. Our damage output's pretty sweet. But the ability to enter Calm for 1 energy is enormous. Say we had an enemy that's going to attack us to hit them with this first and then enter into Wrath, like it's like for free. Oh, nope, I didn't mean to skip. We want Fear no evil. I like that card. We can't treat it as a perfectly reliable way of getting into Calm. Like this turn, obviously we wouldn't be able to, but we wouldn't necessarily want to either. Alright, so here's why having multiple ways in is pretty good. We have 10 cards. We draw 5 per turn, so we're going to draw half of this, and we have 2 different ways of entering Wrath. So we have to decide here. Do we enter Vigilance, so that when we do enter Wrath, we get the 2 free energy? Or do we use this time to do whatever damage we can? Since we have this card that does draw cards, I think we'll go ahead and play that first, and then make our decision based on this. So now, our ability to enter Wrath next turn is much more certain, because now we're talking 2 out of 8, and we only have 2 out of 8 cards that are not attack damage. So, and both of our ways of entering Wrath only cost 1. So I do think it makes sense to Miracle Vigilance to kind of like push the energy forward to next turn. Now before we make that decision, let's try and figure out what is our worst card draw next turn. And I think it would be like, say, this top row, because we'd have our 2 blocks, and our non-Wrath cards would be 2 strikes. We would be doing 33 damage, and that's not good enough. So I think instead what I'll do is I'll just strike while I can and pass the turn. Now if I knew that there was a good chance what we drew next turn would be lethal, and trust me, I'm not being ridiculous here, you can kill Gremlin Knob second turn sometimes with this deck, or with this class I should say. Yeah, so here's one of those times I was telling you about where this is awkward that it ends your turn. If we're going to go into Wrath, we would want to end our turn on this, but then we can't end our turn on that. Nevertheless, this is forward progress. We just did 21 damage, so now we can empty body. And I would say that we can Miracle Conclude, but the Miracle is a skill, so it would Do we care about that? Not so much. Not so much. We're going to enter... Yeah, we might just have lethal next turn, so let's let it ride. We're blocking all but 1 damage this turn. For me, that's one of the challenges of keeping the starter relic, is just managing when to use Miracle. Yep, we have like 4 energy here now. We can't treat this as energy or as attack, obviously, because it puts us into calm, but it is nice that if he was going to survive this turn, we could. But I don't think he's going to survive this turn. Including this, we have 4 attacks, right? So it's 27, 39, 50, 63. We could do 63 damage to him this turn. And we don't even need to cast the Conclude. Nice. Alright, so I actually value this more here than I do on other classes. And this is yet actually another reason why my last run I had a super sweet Act 1, and then I died to the second elite in Act 2. So I'm still learning how to play the class. We just faced Gremlin Knob, and we're only facing 1 more elite this act. And if I'm not mistaken, you can face the same elite multiple times, but not consecutively. So we are actually safe to take Third Eye at this point. We haven't talked about signature move. Can only be played if this is your only attack in your hand. To me, that seems kind of awkward, because if you're down to this being the only attack in your hand, then that chances are you've like been spending energy on other things. Now, because of like things like exiting calm, and the class has ways of generating miracles and miracle pluses, it's not to say that there won't be a point in time where something like this fits, but I don't think we are there. Okay, so we have good single target, good AoE. With the pickup of this, our block game is on point for Act 1 at least. So this might be a time to try to slide a Worship in. It's an uncommon. I know we've seen it like, what, 2 or 3 times already? Game's really pushing it. Or we could pick up a Third Eye, which is more block for like going into Act 2. And then the Scry helps us purify the deck. So we started off with a 10-card deck. We're already 50% above that, which means our chance to enter and exit stances is being diluted, which is natural, but we want to kind of be in control of that to some extent, and Scry would help us do that. So I think I already mentioned that mantra makes more sense when you have 2. Now obviously if you never take 1, you'll never get to 2. And this is a good one because it's half of what you need, but it costs 2 energy. It's one of those things that makes more sense later, and this makes possible sense later. Whereas this, like I said, we just faced the Gremlin Knob. Well, we're not going to get punished for this in Act 1, and then come Act 2, the fact that we have a little bit extra block will actually be quite good. So I will take Third Eye. War Paint, upgrade 2 skills, okay. Vigilance and Defend, plus now. Alright, the Vigilance is nice, because sometimes we'll be casting that for the Calm, so getting even more block on that could be nice. Alright, let's see what this store has. Here's Blasphemy. Enter Divinity, die next turn. So basically you spend 1 energy. That's weird because you gain 3, right? So it's a net gain of 2 energy, and you can do triple attacks, but then you literally have to close out that fight right then and there, or the entire run is closed out. That's quite a gamble. This would fit well enough, especially since we just included this is our second block pickup, so we are kind of working against ourselves as far as having cards to play while in Wrath. So this would help offset that if we found that to be the problem. Flurry of Blows, I think this is the first time we've seen it. It's actually quite good. 0 cost, deal 4, and anytime you change stances, you get it back out of if it's in their discard pile. And do keep in mind that exiting your stance does count as changing a stance. So there's going to be turns where we cast this 3 or 4 times, sometimes while under the effect of Wrath. So now it's doing 8 for 0. And if we could find ourselves a Crushed Joints, it would be 12 for 0. I like this card because I like upgrading my cards. 10 for 2, though, is quite paltry, especially now that we've picked up some better cards. So I don't think we're going to go with that. Because right off the bat, right off like the top of my head, none of these jump out at me as needing an upgrade like this one did. Probably this one, because it's a multi-attack, would be next. But, I mean, so, and we could remove a card. We can't afford any of the relics. So maybe Flurry of Blows and then remove a strike. Actually, because we just added our second, third eye, I would be okay with and one of the defense got upgraded, and vigilance got upgraded. I would be okay with taking a second defend. The last time I took out a second defend, I was punished him almost immediately, but that was not a deck that I had taken a couple of extra block cards on. So let us try again, and then if it fails, I will have learned my lesson. Okay, we got a campfire coming up here. Okay, so 9, 39, 49. He's just dead. And that's what the cards we can see. Wheel Kick will actually draw us from. And we have the Miracle, so yep. Can't steal my gold. Bowling Bash. Alright, that's a fun card. Pretty straightforward. Take some getting used to as far as the mental planning of it, because it's like the only card in the game that flourishes in a multi-target environment but is not AoE. So not too many fights come to mind as when this is like super good, but obviously there's plenty of fights where we're fighting like 3 enemies, like hallway fights, and being able to do 21 for 1 energy, so pretty good. Wave of the Hand. Whenever you gain block this turn, apply 1 weak to all enemies. So if it is it's a nice little survival thing, right? You play that, and then you play a couple of block cards, and now they're weak, not only this turn, but next turn, all enemies. So it's actually a good card. It's kind of on par with like Shockwave and Crippling Cloud or whatever it's called, except for it costs 1 energy. So I think that's the play. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ways of gaining block. It would be better if we had mental... I can never remember the card's name. I always call it Mental Prison, but it's not a prison. Mental Fortress, I think it's called, which basically says every time you change a stance, you gain 4 block or something like that. In that case, yeah, obviously playing this makes sense. And then, of course, Halt. I like the flavor of this card. It's basically free block and way more so if you're in Wrath, which makes sense, because if you're in Wrath, you're risking... but we've done a good job of making sure we can exit Wrath as needed. So, I don't know how necessary that is. I don't think it's a good card in general. You have to always be careful when you have a 0-cost card. It needs to be really good, because it's basically taking up a card that you would have drawn that turn that you could have spent energy on actually accomplishing something more useful. Obviously, Flurry of Blows is an exception because it comes back multiple times. There's another card much like this that says it comes back every time you scry. So if we were to pick up a couple more scry cards, even that one would be worth considering. So I think this is an amazing card. I don't know if now is the time to grab it, though. We just pulled out a second defense, so we're down to only 5 ways of gaining block actively, and we don't have any reactively ways of gaining block just yet. So And obviously this could be uh, sentries, which the first stack would just get chewed up. I think I'm going to skip. Wave of the Hand is very tempting. Bowling Bash is an okay pick earlier on in the act, but we've kind of exceeded that power level at this point. Okay, so I'm pretty sure. Let me just check. Scry 5. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Making the big one bigger is always good. AoE, making that bigger is always good. Yeah. 16. Wow, 4 on AoE. What was this one? 3? Yeah, that's pretty consistent, I think. This is only 1, but it's multiple times. If we had strength, if we had access to strength and this scaling and stuff, that would make more sense. Actually, you know what? I was going to go with one of the AoE ones just because they're AoE. They're more likely to pay dividends, but Tantrum goes back to your draw pile, so it will also pay similar dividends. And like this one's free, so it could be either one. It's nice that we're not actually pressed for any specific one. I can't call it. You can tell it's late in the day for me. I think Tantrum, Consecrate, one of those two. Conclude would be a third, just because it's AoE. It's free, we'll always be casting it, unless there's like Thornies. That's more of an Act 3 problem, though. I'm just going to go with Tantrum. It recurs, we want to enter Wrath, like, yeah, the other one's 0 cost, we're going to be casting it every time. Yeah, of course, it's the Sentries. That's okay. Oh, and Slime Boss is boss, too. I kind of neglected that. That's fine. That's fine. Alright. So, we will Erupt, Strike, and then it's a question of do we pull out by casting Empty Body or Miracling for Vigilance instead. That'll read 9 once we're out of Wrath, as you know. This is 7, this is full block. And more importantly, this is Calm. We do still have Tantrum in the deck. Empty Body will be going to our graveyard, so Tantrum's the only way out of this. Obviously, Fear No Evil. I don't think putting yourself into Calm while you're Calm counts as changing a stance at all. Well, I'll tell you what, because we have Fear No Evil, and because there's always going to be somebody attacking until we get down to 1, I'm okay with saving the Miracle. Always a tough call. Yeah, let's just do that. And this is part of the reason why I think some people avoid the class. It's not easy knowing when to use your Miracle, you know, which way to do the same task. There's Fear No Evil. So we can 12, 42, Miracle, 56. Dang, I wish that lined up better. 42 is enough to kill 1. Fear No Evil would only do 16 though. We would have to cast it here to enter Calm, obviously. We'd have to wheel kick. So I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and do this and draw the cards and okay, see, that's much better. That's much better because now, actually, we don't even need to cast this on this guy because Consecrate damages both of them, right? Now we'll Flurry of Blows here so that when we Fear No Evil this guy, we change stance, which brings the Flurry of Blows back. And now we throw it there. Sweet. The only downside to that... Oh, that's right. Tantrum goes back, so we will be able to... I was just going to say, one of the problems here is that we have no way of getting back into Wrath, but I forgot Tantrum goes back. So you, sir, can just get out of here. Fight over. Okay. So maybe... Oh, that is so good. This is a class that likes to attack a lot, and we've just got done investing into Tantrum. Okay, so there we see that the sentries wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it would have been. Vault! Vault, yes! Oh my gosh, this smooths over so many of the problems with some of the what's the word I'm looking for? Like when you start off, when you can't always enter Wrath when you want to. I think we got to a point where we kind of can now. We can just always enter Wrath. This smooths over all those imperfections, though. And we're about to hit a fire, which makes it cost 2, which makes it a lot easier. And yet another reason to keep your starting relic. I think we'll take the event here. Ooh! Found some gold. Okay, there was one time I hit it at the 25% and I got a relic. And there was one time where I chose the 50% after getting gold and I found nothing. I forget what kind of monster returns though, so let's... Ooh! I wonder if the rewards are going to be similar. Now, we are significantly stronger than we were the first time that we got him. Primarily because of Vault. It sucks that we haven't been able to upgrade it yet, but yeah. Wow. This is fun. Okay. He's not attacking us yet. But we can Flurry of Blows and Consecrate. That's free. This is stronger than Strike, so we can do that. This is a skill, so we actually benefit from using it now. If not now, then when we're about to do lethal. And I'll put us into Vigilance because we get the Flurry of Blows back, which is way better now that we have Vajra. Okay, this is turning out to be a good first act. And more importantly, a good first act that has lots of potential for early second act. Hoo-wee, look at this. Now, I should point out, we now have 2 cards that say end your turn. And you do got to keep that in mind. So, unfortunately, we threw away the... oh wait, not unfortunately. We are in Calm. So this actually gives us 2 energy. Flurry of Blows comes back. We have 4 energy, so we make sure we strike, not conclude. And then we vault to take an extra turn. And we just finish him off. That is insane, am I wrong? Bang! Tori! We do get elite level rewards. That's so sweet, because I avoided 3 elites to be able to take an extra campfire. And here we are. Okay, that's conditional, so we'll put that above persistent. Tranquility. Tranquility. Upgraded at 0, and it's got retain. We technically do have a second way to enter Calm with Fear No Evil, but it is conditional. And as a straight up attack, it's not the strongest. So I'm thinking about taking this for redundancy's sake, and I don't think that's entirely wrong. The only reason that I doubt that decision to some extent is because if we're not facing an enemy that's attacking us, why would we need to enter Calm, right? Why would we need to exit Wrath if nobody's attacking us? Now, the flaw in that line of questioning is if we have multi-targets, and 8, or if we're in Wrath, 18 or 16, would kill one enemy, but we have another one that is going to attack, we would probably throw this at the 1. Point being, having one more way of entering Calm that's not conditional seems good, especially since it has retain, which means after the first time through our deck is effectively thinned out. Yeah. This is another one of those cards that when upgraded, its cost goes down, so that's really nice. There's no way we're giving the next upgrade to it over Vault, though. Vault is just way too good. No. Vault. There we go. Good start. You love getting that first act vault. That's so good. Especially here. If our damage lines up weird with his breakpoint, just vault. Just vault. So yeah, we can consecrate, hit him with the next biggest attack, and just vault. So now we can unload quite a bit, and he's going to take, you know, his usual. For him, it's his first turn. Oh wow, this is actually kind of bad. Well, luckily Wheel Kick might draw us into something better. There's Wrath. I think we can totally afford to go into Wrath. Yeah. Because he's not going to do anything for 2 turns, and we're going to make the split way before that. Okay. I only paused because I've noticed, I'm right now noticing that I'm very kind of wired, amped up, compensating for the trouble making decisions earlier, so I'm just trying to slow down mentally so that I'm not missing stuff. Okay, so here we can afford to conclude. The fact that Tantrum keeps coming back is insane. Look at that. He splits at 11. And obviously if we had another attack in hand, we could have miracled that first before the Ocean Tantrum. No AoE here. That's fine. They're all dead. Look at that. Piece of cake. Piece of cake. Deus Ex Machina. I don't know that I'm familiar with that one. Unplayable. When you draw this card... oh yeah, I remember. That was when I was first playing the deck, and I had this power that was giving me a smite every turn, and I think I even had the Runic Pyramid. Oh my gosh, my head was so stuffed. So this is one of those cards I was telling you about that will give you miracles. So basically this would be take up one of your draws for the turn, but give you 2 miracles. And we've been doing okay with the energy we have. We don't know yet. I kind of wish the game would let you see these and see the boss relics before choosing either. Blasphemy, obviously as the game gets on, this becomes more and more of a dead card. And you really gotta start doing some math to figure out. Conjure Blade is, I think, kind of memey. It's funny, right? Because like this gets better if you already have something like this, something that gives you lots of extra energy. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if when upgraded it gives you, oh okay, 3 miracles. There is such a thing as Miracle Plus, which is 2 energy. That's insane. 3 miracles, yeah. So, like, say we had this already and it was plus, and we had access to 6 energy. Well, let's call it 7. We spend all 7 energy on Conjure Blade, and now we have an Expunger in our deck that says does 9 damage 7 times. That's 63. If we're in Wrath, 126. If we also find a Crush Joints and put them under Vulnerable, that's 189 for 1 energy. Not bad. Now, obviously, I'm being very outlandish here, but like realistically, 3, right? 27, 54, 81 for 1 energy. So it's not that it doesn't have a place; it's that it has to spend it up. You have to spend it up front. And as the game goes on, the opportunities you have to do that, like when are you going to do that? Seriously, you'd literally have to have such a bad hand. Or say you're fighting Nemesis in Act 3 and he's intangibles and you got a fistful of attacks, so you just say, okay, whatever, I'll just build this blade. And then you manage to draw it next turn and just kill him. Like, I get it. There's potential to it. Blasphemy, Enter Divinity, which basically, because it costs 1, you're getting 2 energy right away. Triple damage. But then you have to kill your... This... If you do the math calculations wrong, you just lose the whole run. So this would literally be, hey, how much do you trust your own math? So I think we'll go with Deus Ex Machina. Makes wheel kick a little bit better. Makes vault easier to utilize. And just in general will help us make our attack and block needs simultaneously. Alright, I guess that's the play. Somewhat underwhelming, but I'm sure we'll have some fun with it. Replaces pure water. At the start of each combat, add 3 miracles into your hand. Wow. That is crazy. Compared to this, which is just a persistent +1, but you can no longer obtain potions. Well, so far we haven't really been even looking at the potions, right? Picking up Deus Ex Machina lowers our need for energy somewhat. This would lower our need for energy somewhat. I was just thinking, what if we did take this? Our opening hand would be 8, and then we draw Deus Ex Machina as part of our opening hand, so we have 10 cards as our opening hand. That's the kind of thing I was talking about. Like, one of the downsides of Deus Ex Machina is, like, if you don't have control over your hand, you just lose the benefits. I think this is the play. My only concern is that as the run goes on, I think the need for potions might begin to emerge, and we're just going to not have that. So hopefully having the extra energy helps with that. I'm going to start releasing these individual acts, so thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next act. Take care.